we're going to be putting the long-term view for the continent under review today with the upheaval that we've seen in much of the Middle East, North Africa region. What are the long-term expectations and prospects for the continent looking like right now?
Well, I think the news the news is almost purely good. There are obviously pockets of trouble, as we're seeing in Libya and Tunisia and Egypt and so on. But whilst the media tends to report widely on all the bad things that are happening, investors are really looking for the good things. And investors are getting quite good at finding where all the opportunities are. And obviously, most of West Africa, led by Nigeria, and East Africa, led by Kenya, are looking really, really good over the next 15 to 20 years, as is Sub-Saharan Africa below that, talking Zim, Botswana, Zambia and so on. Everything's looking quite stable, actually.
Having said that, can we put some numbers to it? Because, still where last year, July, we had seen something close to $1.4 billion allocated to Africa by investment funds, both institutional and general. If we fast forwarded to December last year, a lot of that money had started to outflow with, the rumblings having started over in Tunisia. And that continued through February this year. So any indication of how we've wrapped up the first quarter this year?
Well, it's, what effectively Tunisia and then in the main Egypt did was to just stop the inflows into all of the emerging market funds, which at the time, towards the end of last year, the flows were good and steady and actually quite large in size. Because so much money got locked up effectively in those markets, it stopped the inflows and it took the momentum out of the whole progression. I think what we're seeing now, now that Egypt's open and so on, is money is starting to get released back into the system and the status quo is returning back to normal. Obviously, in couple with that, the better outlook in developed markets has also had an effect on those kinds of inflows. But I think, you've had speakers on here this morning, the risk in the developed markets is still quite shaky and there is risk to the downside. I think you're going to see in the second half Sub-Saharan Africa certainly come back to the fore. I think Northern Africa is going to be ignored for a little while while that all settles down. And I think you're going to start seeing big inflows into the emerging market funds and far greater activity in the second half.
And of course, if we do separate things on a geographic basis, we had Sub-Saharan Africa through it all feeling little to no impact as it is. So already showing that investors are starting to differentiate between the different territories a little bit more than they have in the past.
That is precisely the point. I mean, investors are getting pretty good at what they're doing. They're watching what's going on country by country and even below that, company by company. So if you consider what's been going on in Zimbabwe the last few years, there's still active buying. And in the last 12 months, there's been net foreign buying of some $200 million in spite of all the turmoil going on there, which just tells you that people are looking at the actual performance of businesses that they're getting involved in.
If we have to get a bit specific here, Simon, I mean, where are the bright spots on your radar screen at the moment when it comes to whether it be sectors or specific companies in these territories that you've highlighted that do show still some opportunity? Well,
in sectors, it's always the big sectors because of the pursuance of middle classes in all of these countries. So it's going to be construction, brewing, retail, banking, which is a bit more cyclical because of other factors. But all of those big sectors are still going to be the ones that everyone looks at because they have market cap and they have relative liquidity and so on. But construction seems to be a very interesting one. We're seeing more and more reports wherever you go in Africa. You're just seeing cranes.
It's funny that you say that because quite a few people saying that you've still got to be pretty daring to be delving into that space.
You do, but wherever you go, you're looking at a lot of building going on, and there are just cranes everywhere. There are new roads being built. If you look at all the major cities, whether it's Gaborone, whether it's Nairobi, whether it's Nigeria, the Chinese are in there building ring roads around those cities and so on to try and alleviate all of the traffic problems. And these are big projects that will take some time but will have a major effect.
And of course attracting those who possibly missed that initial emerging market boom that happened a while back and giving them that opportunity to enter the game right now.
It's still, in relative terms, we're still quite at the beginning of that whole process. So I'm still confident within the cyclical changes that happen, there's still lots and lots of upside in these markets.